Hi there, good evening. Welcome to the Jim Bohannon Show from Westwood One Radio. A nice sound there, and we're talking with the person behind that. Singer Kim Cameron joins us. Tell us a bit about what you do and where you do it.
Well, I've been doing it all over the country, but what I do is I'm a singer-songwriter. Primarily, I just am writing for my band, which is called Side Effects, and while we're based out of Washington, D.C., most of what we do is outside of the nation's capital. It's usually gallivanting all around the place, touring and recording music and promoting it, obviously.
Mm-hmm. What's it like a life on the road? Because obviously you have to do a certain amount of that. I'm wondering how that meshes with anything that remotely resembles a normal life.
Well, when you're in the music industry, there's nothing normal about it. When you're on the road, there's always something that's going to go wrong, and you've always run into a venue or a concert that forgot this, or something doesn't work, or there's a person that's missing, and it goes without saying that the show really can't go on without something, and not a little thing. It's usually something really dramatic. And then you quickly have to adjust and make it work, similar to probably radio and TV in their productions. But on the road is, it's a lot of fun. It's probably the most fun I've had ever in my life. I mean, it's everything people say or think it's going to be, as far as you've got this sort of camaraderie going. You're performing at places that people naturally are happy to be at. People usually go out because they're trying to forget, get rid of work, get rid of the kids, whatever it is, and so they've already come to a venue, and most of them with drinks in hand, in a good mood. So you're constantly surrounded by happy people, and well, that's always a pleasure to be around.
Yeah. You bring happiness into people's lives. That's a pretty good thing. I mean, I know that there's a high rate of neuroses among dentists, for example, because they know that everybody who sees them doesn't really want to see them. But an entertainer, I mean, people want to be there. That's got to be a good feeling.
It is a good feeling, and that's probably why you have, lots of happy musicians when they perform, and when they're not performing is kind of when they get in trouble and things sort of fall apart.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you performed in a formal setting? That is to say, you're on a stage and people are listening closely, as opposed to just messing around?
Well, I guess, when you're in second grade, that doesn't count because they're required to listen. But I would say the first time we started doing original material, I mean, when I was a cover band, which is before I took on this project, cover bands, people are very, what should I say? You can be a bad cover band, which I can admit that I was a bad cover band, and people are still very, as long as there's something familiar, they're very forgiving. So they're not really paying attention because they really shouldn't have stayed for most of my performances. But, when you start doing original material, mine in particular are all about stories of people that I've met. And part of what I do is explain those stories before the song. So people have already decided they're going to dial in. For the most part, that's true with whether they're male or female, although that has a tendency to be more on the female side. They want to hear the story. And so they will actually stop what they're doing, regardless of the venue, to listen to it.
The Side Effects Band, and by the way, that's spelled S-I-D-E and then the letters F-X. What's your specialty, your strong suit?
Well, right now we're probably strongest in a very dance sort of pop feel. Not Britney. Still got a nice, guitar flavor to it. But I would say that we're generating the most interest, partly because of the success we've had on the Billboard Top 40 recently, but just I'm seeing the reaction that some of it has to do with the way people are right now. You've got an economy that's not doing well, so people are looking for kind of something that gets them moving, dancing, not thinking about it. They don't want to hear about, depressing things because they could do that at home or at work. So that's really what's being carried throughout.
Once upon a time, of course, if you were going to be a professional performing musician, why, you would go on tour and you would look to that point at which you got to make a recording, an album, and then people would rush out and they would all buy your album. And maybe one or two of them would shoplift the album, but not that many. And today, of course, everybody shoplifts digitally. It's a tough time to make a go of it as a recording artist because so many people apparently don't think that digital shoplifting is really theft.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, similar to the news organizations, people believe music should be free. And so while if you really poll people, they believe the artist should get paid, but they won't pay for it. I mean, I've really had these in-depth discussions with people in all sorts of industries, and you think about and say, what's on your iPod? Tell me what's on your iPod. And even if you say, I will give you a song for free, even then, they're really reluctant to download it on their iPod, but they will go out and spend $10 on a glass of wine without blinking an eye. And the wine might not even be very good, but they won't put anything on their iPod that doesn't have a connection to them. And so it's funny because it's really not about the money, even though downloading has hurt the industry. It's more about still trying to make a connection, and right now there are so many artists, so many independents out there putting out so much stuff that it's a sea. And how do you make that connection through the plethora of material out there?
Mm-hmm. You started out, of course, you wanted to be in music, and you've managed to wind up in music now. In fact, you even have your own publishing house. But there was a time when you had to compromise. You were sort of shunted off into the corporate world. How did you maintain your dream?
Boy, that was hard. It was one of those where I finally just you have to decide because you can't really do it halfway. And I thought maybe I could do it halfway, and for about a year I tried to straddle both. And what happens is both organizations suffer. Your dream suffers because you're not really fulfilling it, and the people you're working for, they know that you really don't want to be there. So I had to decide, which was a painful decision because when you have a steady paycheck coming in and then you go into really a consultant role, you are in a very different. You have to completely change, okay, where am I getting the income? I'm not getting it every 2 weeks like I thought it was. So big part of it was as I was getting older and I was watching people close to me going through operations, some dealing with cancer. And I just sat back and I thought, well, if this were me, am I going to look back and say, gee, I wonder, what would have happened, what could have happened. I didn't want to be in that situation. I wanted to at least give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. I know you have a number of causes and indeed an entire section on the website, KimCameronMusic.com, about causes like Mail Our Military and the March of Dimes and so on. Comans for a Cure is listed with your comment, this was a little too close to home for me. Really, has there been a history of breast cancer in your family?
Well, my grandmother had breast cancer, and I had my own scare at one time. Thank goodness it wasn't, but more importantly is two very dear friends of mine did, and thank goodness the technology is there that they're fine. But when you have people so close to you that end up having to face the whole trauma around it and have to make decisions about what they're going to do, it pulls you in, and it's amazing how many women are actually impacted by this. And it's one of those organizations that you can actually see from the last 10 years how many options now are out there that weren't there before. So something's working,
You've certainly come a long way and done many things. What is between you now and the ultimate big breakthrough where you become just mammoth like Lady Gaga or somebody like that?
You know, I wish I knew that answer because the industry is a little funny right now. And it used to be that once you did what I did, which is very unusual, and get as high in the charts with 2 songs, that would be enough to throw you over the top. But it's not. Again, it has to do with how much music is really out there. And when I talk to people at record labels and at different parts of the industry, they actually can't answer that question either. I mean, it's a very, very small number of people that the big labels are putting money into, and you see those names over and over, and then there's everybody else after that. But my guess is, TV seems to be a pretty big area of where stars have, I should say, musicians have become bigger stars. Not necessarily the biggest stars, but TV seems to be much more of a recipe than anything else right now.
Kim Cameron, and you can catch her stuff at KimCameronMusic.com. We heard from Billy Ray Cyrus, a man who made it big, and here's a